Shaun Cassidy once had everything a young star could dream of: fame, fortune, and millions of fans screaming his name. But behind his perfect smile, there was a secret pain that no one around him wanted to see. When he played Joe Hardy in the Hardy Boys, viewers thought he was living the dream. A charming, clean-cut teen solving mysteries on TV. In truth, Shaun wanted the show to explore real-life issues like police brutality, drug abuse, and emotional trauma. He wanted to make something meaningful, something that reflected the world he had grown up in. But the network refused. They told him to smile, to sing, and to stay safe. He did what they asked, until it broke him. In 1981, after years of hiding behind a fake image, Shaun walked away from fame completely. He vanished for 4 decades, reappearing years later as a writer and producer with a much darker, more honest vision. Fans who once adored the cheerful Joe Hardy were shocked when they learned the truth. What had really been going on inside Shaun's mind all those years? And why did the Hardy Boys, once the symbol of youthful fun, suddenly turn dark before disappearing forever? Shaun Cassidy was born on September 27, 1958, in Los Angeles. 1 month late, brought into the world by cesarean section. His parents were both Hollywood legends. His mother, Shirley Jones, was an Oscar-winning actress. His father, Jack Cassidy, was a successful Broadway performer. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale family. But at home, things were far from perfect. Jack suffered from bipolar disorder and alcoholism. He could be funny and charming one moment, then terrifying the next. He once walked around the house naked, claiming he was Jesus. For young Shaun, life was unpredictable and frightening. He grew up watching his father break down mentally, while his mother tried to keep the family together. At 16, he saw his father taken into psychiatric care after another violent episode. The home was full of shouting, broken furniture, and endless arguments. And while all this was happening, his half-brother David Cassidy had become a global superstar thanks to the Partridge Family. Shaun felt invisible in his own home. Even though Shirley was his real mother, she played David's mother on TV, making Shaun feel like he was always second place in real life and fiction. That sense of being unseen and unheard stayed with him for years, and would later influence the dark stories he wanted to tell. By the time Shaun reached his late teens, fame came knocking at his door. In 1975, while still in high school, he signed a music deal with Warner Brothers and released his first single, Morning Girl. It didn't perform well, but in 1977, everything changed when he recorded Da Do Ron Ron. The song hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and made him an overnight teen idol. Suddenly, his face was everywhere, on posters, dolls, and magazines like Tiger Beat. Fans followed him around the world, but fame came with a heavy price. Shaun was performing more than 200 shows a year, barely sleeping between tours. He collapsed on stage in Germany from exhaustion. Behind the scenes, his team controlled his every move. They staged fake romances to make him seem more appealing to young fans. At just 18, he was being told how to act, dress, and even smile. "You look too good to be real," one executive told him. But that's what sells. Shaun started to feel like a puppet trapped in an image he didn't believe in. Even when he tried to change his music to a darker rock style, people rejected it. They didn't want the real Shaun Cassidy. They wanted the perfect, innocent boy from their posters. That disconnect began to eat away at him, setting the stage for what would happen next. In 1977, The Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries premiered on ABC, and Shaun was cast as Joe Hardy. The show instantly became a hit, pulling in over 20 million viewers. He had finally made it big as both an actor and singer. But once again, the image wasn't real. Shaun wanted the show to tackle deeper, more emotional stories, episodes about teenage alcoholism, crime, and real human problems. But every time he brought up these ideas, the producers said no. They wanted clean, safe entertainment that parents could trust. As the show went on, the pressure increased. The cast worked 16 to 18 hours a day, and Shaun even collapsed from dehydration during a stunt. Behind the scenes, tempers flared. When Pamela Sue Martin, who played Nancy Drew, found out she was being paid half of what Shaun earned, she rebelled, posing for Playboy in protest. The scandal got her fired and made the studio even more controlling. Fans loved the innocent image of the Hardy Boys, but the actors were falling apart inside. Shaun started to resent the fake perfection that surrounded him. The more he tried to add realism, the more the studio pushed back. Eventually, even the show's tone changed. In its later seasons, it turned darker and more adult, reflecting Shaun's growing inner conflict. But by then it was too late. Ratings dropped, and ABC canceled it after just 3 seasons. For Shaun, the show's end wasn't just the end of a job. It was the end of his faith in Hollywood. By the time the Hardy Boys ended in 1979, Shaun was burned out. He had lost his father in a tragic fire just a few years earlier. Jack Cassidy died after passing out drunk, and Shaun was the one who came to identify his body. The image of his father's charred remains haunted him for life. On top of that, his music career was collapsing. His third album, Under Wraps, was an attempt to show his darker, more mature side. But fans rejected it. They wanted the teen idol, not the real man behind the mask. Concerts became dangerous, too. During one show, fans rushed the stage and tore his clothes. He suffered panic attacks and even received death threats. By 1980, he released one last album called Wasp, but it flopped. Critics mocked it, and Warner Brothers dropped him soon after. He was just 22, but his entire career, music, acting, and image was falling apart. That was when he began to understand how fake the system really was. The same industry that had built him up was now tearing him down. He disappeared from the spotlight, moving into writing and theater, hoping to be taken seriously. But when he tried to perform on Broadway, audiences left the theater just because his name reminded them of the pretty boy they used to know. Hollywood had given him fame, but it had stolen his identity. After years of rejection, Shaun Cassidy decided to stop chasing fame and start telling stories that meant something to him. In the early 1990s, he began writing and producing television shows. At first, networks didn't take him seriously. His early project, Strays, was about family life in rural America. But executives made him turn it into a horror movie about killer cats. It flopped badly, but it opened doors. He didn't give up. In 1995, Shaun created American Gothic, a dark supernatural series about an evil sheriff with mysterious powers. It was the complete opposite of the Hardy Boys. There were no cheerful songs or perfect families, only darkness, fear, and psychological depth. Critics loved it. The New York Times called it one of the most original shows of the year. Shaun had finally found his voice. The same pain and trauma that once haunted him were now the foundation of his creativity. He wasn't pretending anymore. Even though American Gothic was canceled after one season, it became a cult classic and influenced many later TV dramas. For the first time in his life, Shaun wasn't hiding from who he was. He was finally turning his pain into art. As the years went by, Shaun continued working behind the camera. He created several shows like Roar, Invasion, and New Amsterdam. The last one became a huge success, running for 5 seasons and earning global praise. Critics said they could see pieces of Shaun's past in the writing. Characters who were broken, fighting to be understood, yet full of hope. For the first time, he had full creative control, and he used it wisely. When Netflix offered him $15 million to reboot The Hardy Boys, he turned it down. He said the new scripts were too childish and lacked emotional truth. The show only worked, he explained, because it had real teenage emotion. I won't fake that again. His decision shocked Hollywood, but it showed how much he had grown. He no longer needed fame or approval. He needed honesty. Today, his net worth is around $20 million, most of it earned from writing and producing, not singing. More importantly, he finally found peace. The boy who once smiled through pain had become a man who could face the darkness and transform it into something meaningful. Even now, fans are rediscovering the Hardy Boys and noticing things they never saw before. On online forums like Reddit, people have pointed out strange details in the old episodes. Newspaper clippings, eerie shadows, and small background hints that seem to reflect Shaun's inner world. Some believe he was secretly leaving messages about trauma, loss, and identity long before he was allowed to speak openly about it. Whether or not that's true, it's clear that Shaun Cassidy's story is one of transformation. He started as a boy trapped inside a false image of perfection, and ended as an artist unafraid to face life's dark corners. The real reason the Hardy Boys went dark wasn't a marketing decision. It was the reflection of Shaun's truth finally bleeding through. He had spent his entire youth hiding behind a smile, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. When the Hardy Boys aired in the late 1970s, most people saw it as simple teen entertainment, 2 brothers solving mysteries with perfect hair and cheerful smiles. But years later, devoted fans began to rewatch the episodes with new eyes, noticing something different. Beneath the bright lighting and upbeat music, the show slowly grew darker and more serious. Some episodes had eerie scenes, strange dream sequences, and themes that hinted at loss, fear, and betrayal. Many fans now believe these moments reflected Shaun Cassidy's inner turmoil. He couldn't openly rebel against the producers, but he could express himself subtly through tone, emotion, and performance. In interviews, Shaun later admitted that he was often acting out his real frustration on screen. When Joe Hardy looked sad or distant, that wasn't acting. It was real. He said that even in those cheerful episodes, there was always something sad behind my smile. It's haunting to think that millions of fans saw his pain and never realized it. The mystery of the Hardy Boys wasn't just the crimes they solved. It was the emotional darkness hiding behind the Hollywood mask. Being part of the Cassidy family was both a blessing and a curse. Shaun's half-brother David Cassidy was one of the biggest stars of the 1970s. He had sold millions of records, starred in The Partridge Family, and performed in front of screaming fans worldwide. But behind the fame, David struggled deeply with identity, pressure, and addiction. Shaun grew up watching his brother live and die by the same fame machine he would later face himself. David once told a reporter that fame was the loneliest place in the world. Shaun knew exactly what he meant. The two brothers had a complicated relationship, part love, part rivalry. They rarely saw each other during the height of their fame because they were constantly touring or filming. But years later, they reconnected and forgave each other. When David passed away in 2017, Shaun described it as losing a part of my soul. He said his brother's death reminded him of the cost of fame and why he had chosen to step away from it decades earlier. The so-called Cassidy curse, a mix of talent, beauty, and tragedy, seemed to follow every man in the family. Jack Cassidy died in a fire. David died young from organ failure caused by alcohol abuse. Shaun was the only one who escaped. Not because he was luckier, but because he walked away before the fame could destroy him too. By the early 1980s, Shaun Cassidy was faced with a difficult choice: continue chasing fame or save his sanity. Hollywood was still offering him roles, music contracts, and magazine covers, but he had grown tired of pretending. He later said, "When you become a product, you stop being a person." That realization hit him one night after a concert in Japan. Thousands of fans were screaming his name, but he felt completely empty inside. "It was like I was watching someone else live my life," he said. He returned home, canceled his tour, and decided to disappear. For a while, he lived quietly, writing plays and working in small theaters. It was during this time that he met and married model Ann Pennington. They had 2 children together, and for the first time, Shaun felt a sense of normal life. But fame never stays quiet for long. Reporters followed him everywhere, waiting to see if he would stage a comeback. Instead, he focused on his writing, producing, and learning the craft of storytelling. "Fame fades," he told a friend, "but stories last forever." That choice, to trade the spotlight for the writer's chair, saved his life. Many people don't realize how successful Shaun Cassidy became behind the scenes. After American Gothic, he wrote and produced several major shows like Cold Case, Cover Me, Invasion, and Ruby and the Rockets. Each project carried his signature mix of mystery, family, and moral conflict. Even though some didn't last long, critics praised his originality and emotional honesty. But his biggest triumph came with New Amsterdam, the hit NBC drama that aired from 2018 to 2023. The series followed a doctor trying to change a broken hospital system, a metaphor for Shaun's own fight against a broken entertainment industry. The show reached millions of viewers around the world and made Shaun a respected figure in television once again. Younger fans who had no idea about his 1970s fame were shocked to learn that the serious producer behind the camera was once a teenage pop idol. In interviews, Shaun said he felt proud that people now recognized him for his mind, not just his face. "It took me 40 years, he laughed, "but I finally get to be myself." Shaun Cassidy's later work often explored dark and emotional themes: death, guilt, faith, and redemption. When asked why, he said, "I write about what I know." His childhood trauma, his father's instability, his brother's downfall, and his own loneliness all became fuel for his creativity. Unlike the happy image of the Hardy Boys, Shaun's shows dealt with the real side of humanity. In American Gothic, the hero and villain were sometimes the same person. In Invasion, aliens represented the feeling of being lost in your own skin. These ideas weren't just science fiction. They were metaphors for Shaun's own emotional journey. He once said, "You can't really appreciate the light until you've been in the dark." That belief guided his storytelling philosophy. Every story he wrote, no matter how grim, had an underlying message of hope, that people can survive pain and find meaning through it. That's what makes Shaun's story so powerful. He didn't run from his past, he transformed it into art. When streaming services started rebooting classic shows, it was only a matter of time before they came after the Hardy Boys. In 2020, Hulu released a modern version of the series. Fans were surprised to hear that Shaun Cassidy was offered a major role in producing it. But he refused. "I wasn't interested in rewriting the same lies," he said. He explained that he didn't want to make a show that pretended everything was fine when it wasn't. The Hardy Boys worked back then because we believed in innocence. But pretending that innocence still exists today would be dishonest. His refusal shocked